the 10 Supreme Acts. It's known as the, in English it's translated as 10 Supreme Acts. In Tibetan actually it says 10 acts no matter what. So what it deals with is no matter what, if you have this, no matter what, whether you do this or that, it doesn't matter. If you have this, no matter what, so on and so forth. So I think you remember this. So we will be covering from point number 7. Last week we left at 6. So we will be covering from point number 7. So as usual, please continue to listen to the teaching with the proper Mahayana motivation, which is to attain enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Oh yeah. So point number 7 deals with if you have bodhicitta, no matter what, whether you stay in the so normally as a practitioner, we think of a practitioner as someone who stays in the meditation, who stays in caves, who doesn't come out in the streets, and so on and so forth. So once you achieved bodhicitta, once you're able to generate bodhicitta, it doesn't matter whether you are in the mountains, up there in the mountains meditating, or in the streets roaming around. Both are fine. So this, the reason behind this is as a bodhisattva, so someone who has a bodhicitta is bodhicitta. Someone who has generated a genuine bodhicitta is known by the name bodhisattva. So a bodhisattva is someone who is truly committed for the sake of other sentient beings. Someone who is no longer, who has no stain of any selfish attitude at all. So for such a person, whether that person stays alone meditating in a cave, or mingles with other people roaming around the street, whether they are single or with others, they are always thinking about the sake of other sentient beings, no longer selfish, they are selfless, no matter what. So therefore, for such a person, for someone who has generated bodhicitta, whether you stay in the mountains by yourself, meditating, or with roam around and mingle with other people in the street, both are okay. Both are no matter what, whether you stay by yourself or with other people, both are fine. Then number 8, next is if an individual who has deep faith towards the Guru, whether they remain with the Guru or are far away from the Guru, it does not matter. No matter what, it still is a supreme act. So staying with the Guru is a supreme act, as well as staying without the Guru is also a supreme act. So normally what happens is, unlike today's time where Guru and student meet very rarely, back in the day, I mean, well, this is talking more in the sense of a monastic setting, so where the Guru and the student always stay together. So usually what happens is you learn not just from the teaching classes, which is maybe 2, 3, 4 hours a day, but when you are with your Guru, you watch all the steps that the Guru is taking. You watch your Guru closely, then what the Guru does, how the Guru deals with people, how he sleeps, how they walk, and so on and so forth. So when you are with the Guru at all times, you learn a lot from the Guru, not just from the classes that the Guru gives, not just from the so-called teachings, but also from the way the Guru leads by an example, and that's how you learn. So as a beginner, of course, you will need to be with the Guru, and then with the Guru you will learn a lot by closing up on the Guru. But if you are some people have unfathomable, indestructible faith towards the Guru, no matter what. Sometimes from the very beginning, and for some people, it has to be developed. It has to be built on. So faith is something like a trust, and some people trust somebody. Some people just like that, and for others, it is very difficult to gain trust. So you have to develop. You have to build the trust. So similarly, for some students, one has to be with the Guru for a longer period of time to develop an unfathomable form of faith. And for some students, right from the very beginning, has immense amount of trust in the Guru, immense amount of faith in the Guru. So once you develop that unfathomable, the indestructible form of faith towards your Guru, you are no longer necessitated to be with the Guru at all times. So you can be with the Guru or without the Guru, and it can still be a supreme act, in the sense that you have learned what you need to learn, what you need to learn. Of course, you may not be able to learn everything, but what is required of you at that given time, you have learned. And so therefore, whether you are with the Guru or without, you will be able to benefit yourself and others quite immensely. Therefore, it still is a supreme act. So the next is, once you have heard a lot, once you have learned a lot, and once you have understood the Dharma, whether you attain the siddhis, whether you achieve any attainments, or whether you encounter any hindrances, no matter what, it still is a supreme act for you. So here we have to understand that any encounter that we have in our life is whether to deem them as good or bad, positive or negative, very much depends on our own outlook, our own perspective on how we deal with them, how we react with them. So, let's say something good comes in your life, but if you something very good comes in your life, let's say you have a beautiful house, you get a beautiful house, but at the same time, if you're not satisfied with the house, and you say, oh, I would like to have a bigger house or something like that, then that house which you received, instead of making you happy, is making you unhappy, making you discontent. So similarly, you have a wallet full of cash, and you lost the wallet, and then even though you have lots of cash in that, you hard-earned money, but then if you take the outlook, if you take the perspective that, oh yeah, my wallet got stolen, but whoever steal from me is actually benefiting from, I'm able to help the person that has stolen the money from me, so he is going to, so if you think of it in that way, I'm not saying we should support thieves, but if you think of in such a way that the money that is stolen is actually helping the person who steals them, and in such a manner, it will actually relieve you from your worry, from your depression of losing a huge amount of money. Of course, you have lost your money, but on top of that, if you keep worrying, then it will also deprive you of your peace of mind as well. So this is just an example of how we look at things, how our perspective changes our attitude and our mental state. So in this regard, the lesson number 9 says that once you are learned, once you are much learned and have understood the meaning of the Dharma, whether you achieve any attainments, or whether you encounter any hindrances, both are okay, both are supreme acts for you. in the sense that, of course, if you do practices and you achieve attainments, of course, it's that your results are forthcoming, and of course, this is the occasion of joy. But at the same time, when you do your practices, when you follow your teachings, when you do everything properly, and still a lot of negative things start to happen to you, when you encounter a lot of negativities, it is also a sign, in other words, what we call hindrances. When you encounter hindrances while doing Dharma, while following the Dharma properly, this is also a good sign in the sense that whatever karmic debt that you have accumulated in the past is being shaped off, which you may have to deal with anyways in a much worse scenario, such as in the hell realm or so on and so forth. So because you are doing your practices properly, you are able to advance your karmic debt. You are able to advance your debt-paying stage, your karmic debt paying stage, so that you are able to sustain, you are able to suffer or sustain all the negativities, the karmic consequences that which you are meant to suffer in a much worse off scenario in further lives, were all advanced in this life, and that you are able to suffer in a more in a way that is in a way which you are much more prepared. If you are to suffer all these consequences in a hell realm, you are not prepared at all. But here you have understood the Dharma, you have understood impermanence, you have understood the emptiness, and so on and so forth. So when you suffer, when you go through, when you venture through your negative karmic consequences, you're able to see all of them as a passing through. And so therefore, even though the burden is still there, even though the load is still there, it would be of much less burden for you to carry it. So therefore, whether you suffer or you enjoy, in other words, whether you attain whether you achieve attainments, or whether you face any encounter any hindrances, for someone who has understood the deep meaning of the Buddha Dharma, both are part of a supreme act. Last is for a practitioner who has attained supreme realizations, whether they demonstrate any signs of common siddhis or not, it is still a supreme act. So common siddhis is something like being able to fly, being able to walk through walls, and so on and so forth. So something that ordinary world on something that is considered miraculous in the ordinary worldly scene. So that is usually that these are known as the common siddhis, common attainments. Being able to walk in the air, fly, and so on and so forth. These kind of something. Anyway, so once you have attained the supreme realization, whether you display such signs of common attainments or common siddhis, it is still, whether you do or you do not, no matter what, it still is a supreme act. So once you have so all these external forms of external display, external expressions of the common siddhis, being able to fly and so on and so forth, comes from a certain potential within, certain power within. So without any realization, without any power within, you will not be able to do any of those things. And once you have the potential within, then whether you display them or not certainly entirely depends upon why you are the purpose of doing so. So in certain cases, okay, so this is the scenario. Many people are in awe of gurus that are able to display magical powers. Oh, the guru is able, that teacher is able to tell the future. That teacher is able to fly. That teacher can withstand cold and heat and so on and so forth. So many devotees are actually love to flock towards Guru who displays so-called magical powers. And so for these kind of disciples, it is better to display the common siddhis. So once you display the common siddhis, once the devotees see the external the external powers of the Guru, and they are drawn towards the Guru. And once the disciples come towards the Guru, then the Guru can teach them the real Dharma. And then there are also a large number of devotees who are not at all amused by display of any of this kind of thing, whether the Guru makes some things disappear and appear from their hand, is able to tell something, is able to foretell the future, and is able to display a number of so-called magical powers. Many disciples, a large number of disciples, a large number of, let's say, Dharma enthusiasts are not at all amused by such feats. And for these types of disciples, it is of no use to display these kind of magical sort of prophecies. And so therefore you will see a large number of gurus or teachers who do not display such things, and there's also a large number of teachers who do display such things. So it entirely depends on which kind of devotees that they are trying to draw, they are trying to lead. So a teacher can only lead a disciple that it is destined to lead, and so therefore there has to be what is called the karmic connection between the teacher and the disciple. So no matter what, if the karmic connection is not there, you may be crossing right in front of the Guru, and you will not be able to see them as a Guru. You will not be able to appreciate them as a Guru. And same goes vice versa. So if you have so in that case, whether a practitioner, a yogi, whether they display the external forms of their achievement, their attainment in whether they express their internal attainments through external forms of magical feats or not, is still a supreme act. Once you have realized the supreme, once you have attained the supreme realizations, whether you display or does not display, they are still the displaying part and the non-displaying part. Both are a supreme act, a supreme feat, because it draws the students, the disciples, that they are destined, they're supposed, they're meant to draw. So therefore, the Buddha's display of magic, even during Buddha's time, he displayed magic very rarely, and most of the time, people, if we could refer to common history, people don't see Buddha as a magician. People usually think of Buddha as a logician instead. So he always uses logic and compassion and wisdom to help people, never magic. But of course, in the uncommon annals, in the uncommon stories of the Buddha, the mystical stories of the Buddha, of course, there are many instances where Buddha did display magic. Displaying of the common siddhis is a magical feat. So some people are drawn towards magical feat, and others are drawn towards logical feat. And depending on which the audience caters to, the guru or the practitioner, the yogi, manifests in such way. So this concludes the excellent no matter what session. So the session that The session that we just concluded is known as Chidar Chinyang Legwe Chuchu, which means excellent no matter what, an excellent feat, an excellent act no matter what, but, or supreme act you may call it. So this is concluded now. So now next is the 10 qualities of perfect Dharma. So this is what we are going to cover today. So we will just cover. We will try to cover the first line. It's rather long. So then maybe we will go to Q&A. So here
Và sau đó chúng ta sẽ sang phần hỏi đáp.
Yeah. So usually we talk about there's a term that we use, chö dan jigde. So chö is Dharma, or the spirituality, and jigden is the worldly things. So we have the spiritual, you have the sort of you have the spiritual world and the mundane world, so to speak. So spiritual world consists of doing practices, following the teachings, so on and so forth. And mundane world consists of getting up, engaging in everyday business, dealing with people, and so on and so forth. So they are not contradictory. Of course, one can do both, but normally what or the spiritual path consists something of involving Dharma practices, and the mundane world consists of doing mundane practices of drinking, eating, so on and so forth. So of course both are important, because in order to do Dharma practices, you need to survive. In order to survive, you need to have a house to live, a food to eat, and a clothes to wear, and so on and so forth, for which the mundane world is also important. So this is just a layout. So Dharma can usually, Dharma is a quite ambiguous word. It's a Sanskrit word. It means a lot of things. It means the righteous thing. It means spiritual practices. It means it can also mean the nirvana, and so on and so forth. It can also mean at certain point it can also mean all phenomena. Everything is Dharma in certain context. Everything that exists is everything that exists in the world is a Dharma, and at certain point nirvana is a Dharma, and so on and so forth. So Dharma that we are talking about, when we say the 10 qualities of the Dharma, we are actually talking about Dharma in the sense of, the Buddha's teaching specifically is also called the Dharma. So in one way you can say everything is Dharma, in which case the Buddha is also a Dharma, the Dharma is also Dharma, Sangha is also Dharma. Also killing someone is a Dharma, stealing from someone is also a Dharma, everything positive and negative also are Dharma. Then specifically Buddha's teaching, normally when we talk about Dharma or the Buddha Dharma, we are referring to teachings of the Dharma, Buddha. The Sanskrit word Dharma, the definition of the word Dharma actually consists of something that is able to sustain its essence. So any object that is able to sustain its maintain its essence, is able to maintain, is able to hold its essence, is something called that is Dharma. In that sense, everything is a Dharma. A dog is a Dharma. As I said, killing someone is also a Dharma. Any negative deed is also a Dharma, because any negative deeds also, the deed of killing someone is, the deed itself is able to hold its essence. So therefore, whatever, any object, any act, any phenomena that is able to hold its own essence is regarded as a Dharma in a more general way. As I said at the beginning, Dharma is a very ambiguous word. But when we say Dharma practices, we are referring to more the Dharma practices, the so-called spiritual practices are Dharma in the sense that they're able to maintain and hold the essence. So the essence here refers to the goodnesses, the favorable, the goodnesses, the positivity. So by practicing Dharma, one is able to maintain and hold the integrity of one's positivity, the positive essence of a person or an act, and so on and so forth. So therefore, a phenomena, a spiritual practices is referred to as a dharma because it's able to hold its essence. The essence here being the positivity. So in that sense, and Buddha's teaching is also regarded as the dharma. So dharma, as I said in the beginning, is a very ambiguous word. So here in today's topic, when we say Dharma, we are referring specifically to the teaching of the Buddha, not to any other aspect. In this particular session, when we say the 10 qualities of the Dharma, we are referring to the 10 qualities of the Buddha Dharma, which, as we usually talk about, the Dharma, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So the second one, the second refuge, the teachings of the Buddha is what we are referring to. Okay, so anyway, so here in this particular session, when we say the 10 qualities of the Dharma, or to be precise, the 10 qualities of the noble Dharma, we are referring to the teachings of the Buddha. And so therefore, so we are referring to the teachings of the Buddha. So the 10 qualities of the teachings of the Buddha, of course, starts with first with the 10 virtuous deeds. So the first of the 10 qualities of the Dharma is that it is able to give rise to these qualities that we will be dealing with in the mundane world. So people, so here this is also reference to the fact that one can be in the mundane world and still achieve spiritual heights. So living a mundane world is what the world that we are living in. By living in the mundane world, we can still engage in the spiritual world and achieve attainments through such practices. So by practicing the Buddha Dharma, the noble Dharma, we will be able to give rise to the 10 virtuous deeds, and the 6 perfections, and understanding of the emptiness of all phenomena, and then the understanding of all the emptiness of all the phenomena, then the understanding of the 4 noble truths, the so-called the 4 dhyānas, the 4 formless absorptions, and the rapidings of liberation of mantra, and so on and so forth. So anyway, these are the different types of understanding and achievements and fruitions that we can achieve by engaging in the spiritual in the Buddha's teaching, in the Buddha Dharma, in the noble Dharma. Even so, by practicing such and such, you will be able to bring forth, give rise to these qualities in the mundane world. So the first point actually deals with a certain number of qualities, and actually they are quite it's quite vast. Actually, this is, but we will try to deal with one by one. So as I said before, I don't know whether we can finish off even the first one today, but let's just try. So the first one is the 10 virtues. The 10 virtues deed. So there's non-virtue and there's virtue. So in plain English, in simple terms, positive and negative. That is, in Dharma terms, we call them virtuous deeds and non-virtuous deeds. So such actions such as killing someone, stealing from someone, harming others. These are considered non-virtuous deeds, negative deeds, and helping someone. So the opposite of all of the negative deeds are considered positive deeds, and that is the virtuous deeds. So there are 10 virtuous deeds. Usually in the Buddha Dharma, we always talk about the mind, body, and speech, right? Mental, physical, and verbal. So there is 3 negative. So to understand the virtuous deeds, we first deal with the non-virtuous deeds, and the opposite of the non-virtuous deeds are the virtuous deeds. So when we deal with the non-virtuous deeds, there are 10, just similar to, since they are the exact opposite of the 10 virtuous deeds, there are 10 non-virtuous deeds, and the 10 non-virtuous deeds comes like this. So there are 3 non-virtues. So for the mind, body, and speech, mental, verbal, physical. So there are 3 for the mental, 3 mental negativities, 3 physical negativities, and 4 verbal negativities, or verbal non-virtuous deeds. And the first, let's deal with the physical ones first, which is more easier to identify. So the 3 physical negativity deeds are to take someone's life, the second is to take someone's object, someone's property without consent, without giving. So in other words, stealing. The sexual misconduct. So these are the 3 negativities from the physical side. And then on the verbal side, there is the lying, and then there is the trying to divide people. I don't know what that's called in English. Divisive speech, yeah. Divisive speech. So trying to, if someone is trying to divide 2 groups of people by saying negative things about them behind them. So if you divide people, if you divide 2 groups through your speech, then that speech becomes divisive speech. Then there is the heartful speech. So if you say something that hurts someone, the heartful speech. So heartful speech does not necessarily have to be very aggressive. You don't have to say a heartful speech by showing anger, or the expression does not need to be heartful. If you say with smiling face something that is very heartful to other person, and then it actually does gets the job done, meaning if it does hurt the other person, then it is a heartful speech, heartful word. Heartful speech. And then the last one is which is idle talk or gossiping. So what usually happens with gossiping by itself doesn't seem to be harmful. You're just talking about, you're just gossiping. But what it will lead towards is when you are gossiping about someone or something, when you are doing idle talk, since you cannot do idle talk for the whole day, it will lead to more severe forms of negative speeches. And then these speeches, so when you start gossiping about someone, even in the beginning you're just gossiping, it's nothing serious. But then when the gossip sort of advances, one begins to believe into the gossiping, and then one starts to think, plot things of one's own. You start thinking of how to deal with those gossiping, and how to attack the person who actually started those gossiping, so on and so forth. And which leads us to the 3 negative mental non-virtuous deeds, which is So first one is covetousness. The second one is malice, or willing to hurt someone, willing to harm someone, wishing to harm someone. And the third one is wrong view. So either through gossiping or through actions that has been done or thwarted towards you, one is compelled to plan tactics or plan tactics of one's own to deal with those things, and then one starts to harm other person, or one wishes to harm other people. So wishing to harm, or malice. Then you also have covetousness, which is covetousness is a form of attachment, and it's also a form of greed, because you want things that others have. So when you desire to have, when you have a strong urge and desire to have everything that other person has, that is a form of a jealousy as well. It is a form of greed. It is also a form of attachment, and so on and so forth. So covetousness, wanting to have the things that others have, that is called covetousness. And then the wrong view. A wrong view is something. Yeah, the wrong view that we are referring to here is not believing in the karma, not believing in the triple gem, so on and so forth. Are wrong view. It is wrong view in the sense that so when you have a wrong way, there's only one way to, for example, let's say there is one way to get from point A to point B, and on the way you reach an intersection. So there are two ways. Only one way will lead you to the to your destination, which is point A. So if you take the wrong way, then you will never be able to reach your destination. So similarly, wrong view is wrong in the sense that it will not be able to, once you have the wrong view, you will not be able to reach your destination, which is nirvana, or enlightenment, because the way, the path you have chosen is already, you have chosen the path that does not lead you to your destination. So therefore, it is the wrong path. And having such a view, having such an attitude, is actually a wrongful view. So wrong view is usually disbelieving in the karma, thinking that doing negative deeds will not bring negative consequences, doing positive deeds will not bring any positive results, or in other words, if I help someone, I will be less. I will be more. I will be less. If I help someone, I will be less happy. If I forcefully take something from someone, I will be more happy. So this is the wrong view. This is actually, you are twisting the law of causality. You are twisting the karma, and so therefore it is. If you seriously, solemnly believe that doing such an act, engaging in such an act, will bring you happiness and joyful contentment, then you are having the wrong view. So similarly, if you think, okay, I don't believe in this Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and of course you don't have to believe in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, first thing first, right? And it is not necessary for anyone to believe in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. You don't have to be a Buddhist, you don't have to be a Muslim, you don't have to be a Christian. It's all up to you. But if you want to reach the destination according to the Buddha's teaching, then of course you have to believe in the Buddha. So that is the thing here. So these 10 negative deeds are known as 10 non-virtuous acts, non-virtuous deeds, and the opposite of that is the virtuous deed. Okay, so conclude the teaching here, and then open for Q&A.
Can you hear me?
Oh yes, please go on, Ms. Yan.
We have three questions, Rinpoche. The first one is frustrate to Rinpoche. Sometimes we really did something against Dharma. Can we say that we understand Dharma? Thank you, Rinpoche.
So there are many times we do things against the Dharma, against the Buddha's teaching, but we are unaware of it. So because we still don't understand, we have not understood all the teachings of the Buddha. Even the written teachings of the Buddha consist of in Tibetan alone there is like 100 volumes of the Gangyur, which is the Buddha's teaching. So we have not we have not read all of the Buddha's teaching, and if you have not read Buddha's teaching, at least the physical scriptural teachings, then of course there are a lot of Buddha's teaching which has not been put down into notes, which has not been put into paperwork. But basically one can understand, even though one has not written all of the Buddha's teaching. So there are two layers here. So since we have not read all the Buddha's teaching, we cannot say we have understood all the Buddha's teaching. But at the same time, Buddha himself made it very clearly. So which means commit not any unwholesome deed, gather a wealth of virtue, and subdue your mind. And this is the teaching of the Buddha. So he himself said that. So in simple terms, abstain from any negative acts. And negative acts, actually, there is a vast number of negative acts that we may not be able to count. If we start counting, there's so many different forms of negative acts. But all forms of negative act, majority of them actually consist part of the 10 negativities that we just covered today. And Buddha himself said, commit not any unwholesome deed. So unwholesome deed is non-virtuous deeds, and gather a wealth of virtue. So virtuous deeds is the opposite of the negative deeds. So if taking someone's life, killing someone is negative action, then helping someone survive, helping someone live through is a positive virtuous act. So goes vice versa. If taking someone's property without their consent or stealing is a negative act, then giving something to someone is a positive act. And so it's a positive and it's a minus plus thing. So what is considered negative, the opposite of that is the positive. Abstaining from and doing the exact opposite will be the positive thing. So the negative deeds we just covered. So, and also at the same time, one must not just lose yourself in engaging with the outer world of just helping someone and not killing someone and not stealing and giving alms and generosity to engaging in generosity to other people. Not just lost yourself in that act alone, but also at the same time also don't forget yourself and try to tame your mind, subdue your mind, because at the end of the day, no matter what act you are putting on, no matter what external appearances you are expressing and putting out, at the end of the day, you are nothing other than your mind. You do what your mind thinks, what your mind tells you to do. So therefore, at the end of the day, if your mind is unruly, if your mind is maleficent, if your mind is stormy, then sooner or later it will manifest in such a way externally as well. If your mind, if you have an ill intention inside, then it will manifest sooner or later, either through verbal abuses towards people that you don't like, or through physical harm towards people that you dislike. And so therefore, so back to the question which you asked, if you do things that is not in accordance with the Buddha's teaching, do we understand the Buddha Dharma or not? So if you deliberately understood the Buddha's teaching and you do it anyways, then you are undermining the Buddha's teaching, which is a very grave thing. It's a grave negative action. But if you do not know certain aspect of the Buddha's teaching and you do it anyways, I mean, you do it without your knowledge, then it is less harmful, or should we say, the consequences are less grave. Okay, next please.
Rinpoche, when one is harsh or strict with oneself, for example, not taking the time to rest or relax, but constantly working to serve others, is it considered a good Dharma practice? Thank you, Rinpoche.
It's a very good question. So if you, I don't know how many of you know about this image of the Buddha, statue of the Buddha called the Ascetic Buddha. The Buddha, there's a, or I think it's more popularly known as skeletal Buddha or Ascetic Buddha, I guess. So there's a Buddha who's very, very thin, and all his bones are showing, and that the original statue lies in Pakistan, which is a Buddhist state. Pakistan and Afghanistan both are very religious and very religious, highly religious Buddhist states back in the day. But anyway, so there is a Buddha's image called the Ascetic Buddha. So if you see the Buddha, he's all bones, So the reason this actually, if you see His Holiness the Dalai Lama when he's teaching, also behind his on the backdrop there is the image of the Ascetic Buddha as well. Of course, it's a replica, it's a copy. So the teaching, so the moral here is that of course one has to work hard at the point of giving your so you must test your physical will. That is very important. With Dharma practice, what you have to do is you have to be very honest with yourself. You have to be very honest with yourself. And whatever is the thing that is bothering you, you have to deal with that first. So desire and, if attachment is your most, if attachment is the thing that that bothers you the most, then you have to deal it first. You cannot leave it for the last. So if stinginess is your negativity, if your weakness, you're not able to give money to others, then you should deal with that first. If you're not able to do meditation, you should deal with that first. Generosity, giving money, doing chanting is not important. You should deal with meditation first. If you are not able to pray well, if you're praying your weakness, then you have to deal with that first. Forget meditation and generosity and other things. So you have to be very honest with yourself and deal with your most most bothersome emotion first. So in such way, it is first of all, it is a very good thing that you are engaging in working towards other people and doing all sort of things. But at the same time, do you enjoy doing this kind of thing? Are you doing all this kind of positive thing or helping others and so on and so forth in order to run away from something more sinister? There is something more negative within you which you do not want to deal with. So instead, you deal with helping people and others. Of course, helping people is a very good thing, but a lot of people actually engage in helping people so that they can forget their own negative past. So if that is the case, you have to actually first deal with your negative past, which is more important because sooner or later it will surface and you will be in a far worse shape than before. So it is very important to deal with. You have to be very, very honest with yourself. No matter what Buddha thinks, no matter what gods think, no matter what Guru think, don't think about what they will think or they will know of that. Just think for yourself. As Buddha said, you are your own master. And so therefore, be very honest with yourself. What's your weakness and how embrace your weakness, engage with the weakness that you have, and deal with that weakness first thing first. and then the other things will, will not matter at all. So in that case, so the question was, of course, that if you give yourself up and engage in the work for others and all these kind of things, is it a good practice, Dharma practice or not? Yes, it is a good Dharma practice. And as I said, it is a good Dharma practice, but is it the best Dharma practice for you or not? Depends entirely upon your own mental attitude, upon your own mental potentials as well as weaknesses. Your own weaknesses and your own potential, you know best. And so therefore you have to deal with your own weaknesses and your own potentials, harness your own potentials, deal with your own negativities, your own weaknesses. The first thing, that is the most important thing. That is the perfect Dharma practice for you. So this is very important. Of course, it is a good Dharma practice, of course. Yeah. But whether it is the most excellent practice prescribed for you or not depends entirely on your honesty towards acceptance of your potentials and your weaknesses. Okay.
Thank you. Rinpoche, we have 2 more questions, but they seem to be related. So I'll just read question 4 instead of question 3.
Okay.
I think they're related when they answer them. Rinpoche, there are many people who are very kind, have a pure heart, but due to their temper, they often have no control over their emotions and often say what hurts others, especially when they are angry. Is that also a violation of the 10 virtuous deeds? Thank you, Rinpoche.
I thought the questioner is describing me. I'm also very kind and compassionate, but I lose my temper.
You're very kind.
Just kidding. It's true. So it's true. We talk about weaknesses, and one of my weaknesses is temper. I'm also very short-tempered, and I lose my temper quite a lot with my family members and with people whom I'm close with. So I've been dealing with I've been dealing with it as much as I can. So I might say there are some progresses, but of course I'm not there yet. So there's a difference between anger and malice, ill will, ill intention, wanting to hurt someone, hatred, and anger. So anger is in one might say it's natural, but of course in the Buddhist terms it's not natural, because if it's something natural, then you cannot remove it. But the anger is not a natural part of the mind. Therefore, anger can be removed. That is according to the Buddha Dharma. But from a worldly point of view, we might even say the anger is natural, because if someone actually taunts you, if someone triggers you to be angry, then you will become angry. So you might say it's natural. Anyway, so it's almost natural. So it is a reactionary emotion, you might say. So when someone taunts you, when someone irritates you a lot, of course you tend to become angry. And the thing is that so there are 2 types of anger, right? One is like really strong anger that you can't hold yourself, hold yourself back. You really want to destroy the other person. That there is that kind of anger. It's not even hatred. You are really irritated by that person's action, and you really want to do something. Even so, as I said, most of the time my anger is towards people whom, towards my family and towards people whom I'm close with. So it means I love them. I love my family and I love people whom I'm close with. But at the same time, they irritate me to a certain degree that I'm really angry with them, and I want to get rid of them. And so this is a mental state that I am in. As we say, we are not anger, but we will say I am angry, which means I am in a state of anger. So we are never angry. We are never anger, but we will be in a state of anger when we are infuriated, when we are triggered to a certain point. So as I said, there are two forms of anger. One is like really uncontrollable form of anger, and then there is the less aggressive form of anger, which is controllable. During the first stage, actually, there's nothing we can do. When it comes, and when it goes, then we regret and we say sorry to each other, and so we try to make it up. But when the anger is less aggressive, when it's there are less, when we say I'm really irritated, I'm really irritated by these things, so there is that form of anger. You are really angered by the irritations caused by people around you. So when you are able to see yourself and you are able to see yourself in a state of anger, at that moment you are not wholly angry, or you are not in the full form of anger. When you are able to see and realize that you are angry, not that you have been angry, but you are angry. So this happens a lot to us, right? We are just pissed off. Normally we use the word I'm pissed off. I'm so pissed off. So, this is actually a form of anger. And when these things happen, you should analyze your mind. Why am I pissed off? Why? And is it really the other person's fault or not? Is it my fault or the other person's fault? Even if it is the other person's fault, why should I be pissed off? Why should I be angry? By being angry, I'm also, of course, the other person made a mistake and made me angry. The mistake is the first loss. The second loss is that by being angry, I'm also losing my peace of mind. So there are two losses. First loss is that the person who made you angry made some mistakes. That mistake is the first loss. The second mistake is you give in to, that you give in to the reactionary emotion of anger. You're not able to keep your cool. You let yourself off. So that is the second mistake. And so this is when the anger is little less aggressive, when you are able to see that you are angry, these are the times that you have to utilize to get head-on-head with anger, head-on-head, one-on-one with anger. And this is what I meant by saying deal with your anger. When the anger is like 100%, like when you are wholly consumed by your anger, of course, there's nothing. You just have to let your anger calm down, simmer down, and then you will regret and say sorry and all the other things. But by that time, it's too late, and there's nothing much you can do about that form of anger. So usually when the anger is coming through, when you see the tide arriving, that is when you should deal with. And this is what I meant by dealing with your emotions. So as I said, in the West, they talk about expressing everything, and of course, like anger should not be put inside. If you are angry, just let it out, and all this kind of thing. Of course, you have to let it out, but you should not let it out in the sense that it deprives you of your peace of mind. But instead, when the anger is there, recognize your anger and then engage with it. When that, as I said, there are two forms of anger, right? Sometimes you know that you are angry. Sometimes you remember, you recall that you were angry. That is in the past. Nothing. You cannot do anything about that. But when you are in the present form, when you can realize that you are angry, there's a lot of things you can do. And this is the time that you must engage in with your anger. You must deal with your anger. And by dealing with the smaller forms of your anger, you will be able to master, you'll be able to maneuver your anger. The anger can also be turned into strength. And then this can eventually help you grow more spiritually. And then in the mundane world also, by dealing with your lesser form of angers, you'll be able to control your more serious form of anger as well.
But is it part of, does it violate your anger? Does it violate the 10? virtuous?
Anger is not part of the, the 10 non-virtuous deeds. So ill thought, ill intent is one. It is one of the. So if you are angry, if you are angry and you plan to attack the person, hurt the person, and so on and so forth, then the malice comes in. Then you have ill intent, ill thought, and this is a violation of the 10 virtuous deeds. But if you are naturally angry, anger by itself is not part of the not a part of the 10 non-virtuous deeds. But it still doesn't mean it's not a negative thing to do.
Right. So if you are angry and you say things that hurt other people's feelings,
yeah,
it is a violation. The 10.
Of course, then you have violated. If you then you have violated two things. Most probably, because in order to, when you say something to hurt someone, you actually have to think of something to say hurt someone, right? If you are going to say, if you're going to abuse the other person, you have to think of a word to abuse the person. So when you by that time you are planning to hurt the other person, so there is the malice, the ill thought is there, and then you have actually uttered the negative word of abusing other. So there is the hurtful word, hurtful speech is also there. So you are breaking two virtuous you are violating two virtuous deeds here. The ill intent of saying a negative thing and the actual action of saying a negative word.
Thank you, Rinpoche. There's a last question. Is from Facebook. Would you like me to read it? It's
okay. Yes, please. Yeah.
A question from Carol McQuire on Facebook. The question is, what is anger? If it is not intent to harm, where can we check these definitions or read more to understand it? In other words, anger without desire to harm will only harm the person who experiences the emotion.
Hi, Carol. It's a very good question. So anger, the Tibetan word we use is Tongkhor and Choa, and this actually refers to a form of detestation or revulsion, or a form of loathing, actually. So you are, a very strong form of detestation and a very strong form of revulsion from a certain object or certain incident that is occurring. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be because you can be angry about the weather, so you're not going to do any harm to the weather. So it is a strong form of detest and strong form of revulsion, strong form of disgust maybe, but not necessarily any intent to harm. But hatred is a little different here. You cannot be hateful about the weather. You can be angry about the weather, but you cannot be hateful about the weather. So hatefulness usually has to have a target that you can actually put harm at. Whether you actually do it or not is another matter, but it should have the potential to be hurled harms against. So no matter whether you cuss at the weather or not, the weather is not going to be affected in any ways. So therefore, the weather is not the target or subject of your hatred, but it is the subject of your anger, in the sense that you are utterly repulsed by the weather, or maybe whatever incident that is going on around you. Okay, so you asked where we can read about this. So there's the they talk about the the 51 forms of mental factors and so on and so forth. You can read about those in the Treasure of Knowledge, Compendium of Knowledge, or Treasure of Knowledge by Acharya Vasubandhu. But I think more interestingly, you can read about this in the I don't know the exact name, but His Holiness actually commissioned the monks to sum up something called the Compendium of Buddhist Science and Philosophy. Compendium of Buddhist Science and Philosophy. I think it's called Buddhist Compendium of Buddhist Sciences. So there's, I think the book number 2 is already out in English. I think there would be like 6-7 books more to come. So I don't remember exactly in which volume it was. Maybe it's the second one. Maybe it's I think it's in the first one though. So you can inquire about that in the for more details. But usually we refer to the Compendium of Knowledge, or Treasury of Knowledge as we call it, by Acharya Vasubandhu, before of course His Holiness's commissioning of the compilation of all the Buddhist sciences and philosophies.
Yeah. Okay.
So she asked about the books. So anyway, she got the answer. So if you're really interested, you can just look up into the video. Then I mentioned the name of the books. So those of you who are really interested, you can just look it up. Okay, so we conclude today's teaching here, and thank you very much, all of you, for listening so attentively. And let's dedicate the merit that we have accumulated today